very much. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Up for New York City and City and State for hosting tonight's panel discussion. And as Jasmine said, I'm supposed to be the keynote speaker, but I guarantee you it won't be a 30 or 40-minute keynote speech. But I do want to make some, I think, very relevant and important comments about 421A. And as Jasmine pointed out in her introductory remarks, this is a very relevant discussion. As most of you probably are aware, 421A is set to expire on June 15th. So what is 421A? 421A is essentially a tax abatement plan that was created in 1971. And it was created in the early 70s because of the stagnant marketplace in terms of housing and affordable housing in the city of New York. And over the last almost, over 40 years, 421A, frankly, has really failed its mission in terms of creating a great deal of affordable housing. And 421A has actually really turned out to be a over $1 billion annual tax giveaway to developers who apply for 421A benefits and agree to build a certain percentage of affordable housing. Obviously, if you're following this discussion closely and you're following what the mayor of the city of New York is saying, we still have a very significant and serious affordable housing crisis in the city of New York. So obviously, 421A has not resolved the issue of affordability or the amount of affordable units. And so our view is, while this is due to expire now, we believe that 421A should be reformed, and we support a number of reforms. We, in the building trades, feel that it should be extended. And I know some people on the panel tonight will disagree with that, and they're entitled to their opinion, that there should be no 421A, but the position with the New York City building trades is that there should be a 421A extension. However, that extension has to include reform, and that reform should not only include more affordable units, it should include wage standards. And when we say wage standards, we mean prevailing wage. And the reason we say that is very, very clear, because it is essentially a tax subsidy. It is public subsidy. And we believe strongly that with public subsidy comes public responsibility. I was asked this question last week on another panel in the city about, well, are there any other examples? Well, on publicly funded projects, not only in the city of New York, but in the state of New York, those projects which are publicly funded, no different than 421A projects, they receive prevailing wage. Now, there are a number of arguments that are being made, and these arguments is that, one of them is that you can't build affordable housing with prevailing wage. That is a complete falsehood. And the reason I say that is a complete falsehood is because throughout the city of New York, as we speak at this very moment, there are scores of affordable housing projects being built, 100% building trades, which is, in fact, the prevailing wage. So the argument that by including a prevailing wage into a housing project that has affordable units, you can no longer be able to build those projects, it's just not right. It's incorrect. And again, I think that facts are more important than rhetoric, and the facts dictate this. The other position that I should make clear in terms of what we're proposing in terms of reforming 421A is a very realistic approach in terms of what projects would actually be covered by prevailing wage. And our position is we're talking about larger scale projects. And right now we say that any project that has over 50 units or more and is over 50% or more market rate, that's the projects, those projects, as we go up on a scale, should be covered by prevailing wage. And the reason we take that approach is because we recognize that there are economies of scale and that larger and more dense projects that have a majority of market rate units can actually support a prevailing wage. So we are very, sure in our facts. We've done a great deal of research, and we also have gone out to the public as a whole. And what we've found from the public is that 70% of the general public believes that 421A should be reformed. And part of the reform, and a very important part of the reform, is the creation of good middle-class jobs. And good middle-class jobs mean prevailing wage, means jobs that families can support a middle-class life, that the workers are covered in terms of medical coverage and health care coverage for themselves and their families, and that provide retirement security. And these are all things that prevailing wage jobs do. So it's important to understand that there are tremendous arguments by different groups that are housing developers, and I'll mention one, which is NYSAFA. Now, it's odd, it strikes me odd that I know that Jolie Milstein from NYSAFA was invited tonight, but she did not attend. And I think probably the reason why my friend Jolie didn't attend is because if asked the question about wages and conditions on job sites, I don't know how she could answer a question, do you believe, or does your organization believe, that good middle-class wages should be paid to workers? And do you believe that good middle-class wages leads to a stronger economy and therefore a stronger city? And the reason why she can't answer yes is because we actually know that in large measure, the majority of NYSAFA developers and contractors pay as little as $12 an hour to their workers. $12 an hour with no benefits, no safety training, no security whatsoever on a project. And when that worker is no longer needed or that worker becomes injured, they're tossed aside like a piece of garbage. And aside from the issues, legislative issues in terms of 421A, there are certain principles in organized labor that we stand for. And those principles are that we want to represent workers, and we believe all workers are entitled to dignity in the workplace. They're entitled to a good middle-class wage. They're entitled to health care coverage. They're entitled to the appropriate safety training. They're entitled to safety equipment on projects and to work in a safe environment. And we could go through scores of data and statistics where on these developments that are largely NYSAFA developments, these conditions don't exist. So I guess that's why NYSAFA did not attend tonight, because if they're going to give an honest answer, it would have to be they want to perpetuate poverty in the city, and they want to have a profit model that basically they get everything and the worker gets nothing. Okay? That is not what is going to sustain our economy. That is not what is going to sustain the middle class in New York City, or that concept is not going to sustain the middle class in the country. And I believe New York City should be a leader in the country. And I believe when it comes to 421A, the legislature should act like leaders and take a position once and for all that we amend and reform 421A for certain projects that can support prevailing wages, and we ensure that workers receive middle-class wages, benefits, and conditions. So that's what we believe in. Now, as I said, there is a lot of rhetoric out there that says it can't be done with prevailing wage, says that workers that we don't want to have local workers working on projects. That's a new one. I mean, I want to say that over 50% of members of the New York City Building Trades Council live in New York City, and that if we look at our facts once again, that we know that in the last 3 years of over 8,000 apprentices, 70% of them are minority, and 75% of them reside in the city of New York. So there's an evolution changing even in terms of the makeup and fabric of the building trades. So these will be local residents that will go to work on projects in the city of New York. We have some of the best pre-apprentice programs in the country in the city of New York, and these are all the benefits of building with New York City building trades. Unfortunately, like I said, there are some people that don't want to see standards in the construction industry, whether they're wage standards or safety standards. and that's what we're up against. But as I said, in terms of 421A, I actually fully believe, because I've looked at the facts and the data, we're in the right. And what it really takes now is a commitment to reform 421A and essentially stop giving over $1 billion a year in tax breaks to very wealthy developers who don't want to have any responsibility to the workforce. I mean, I don't know anyone that can argue that that is right. Now, this tax abatement annually is over $1 billion a year. Yet developers want to push back on good wages for the very workers that build those projects that they're getting over $1 billion annually. Something is very fundamentally wrong. So I'm very excited about tonight's panel discussion, and I look forward to hearing from the other panelists, and I look forward to answering any questions that may be directed my way, because again, we know in New York City, in the building trades, and certainly we are very big supporters of Up for New York City. And again, I want to thank them, and that's the Carpenters Union and the Laborers Union, the Labor Management Trusts, that have really stepped up to the plate and taken this issue to a new level. And that's because, again, they believe in the principles that I described, that all workers should be treated justly and fairly in the workplace, and that the top just can't keep getting and getting and getting without some responsibility back to the workers who actually build these projects, and they make not only profits, but again, major tax breaks annually, over $1 billion a year. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts. And now I'll turn it back over to Jasmine, and I will join the panel. Thank you very much.